recognize the member for Regina Wall Shakers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and colleague. I just want to start off by saying it's an honor for me to be able to rise in this House and contribute to the conversation and to the debate about the speech from the throne. There's a few people I'm going to thank before I get into the meat of my throne speech response, and first and foremost, I'd like to thank my beautiful wife, Larissa. She is my constant companion, and she gives me wonderful feedback and keeps me grounded, and I think obviously we all owe our spouses a wonderful round of applause for the work they do at home. They keep the home running keep the home running while we're away. We're not at home as much as we'd like, and my new son Nixon's here as well in the legislature for the first time, and he doesn't get to see Dad as much. Last couple of days I haven't been home as much as I was before, and he's already playing shy with me, and he might be Mom's boy here for the next 5 or 6 years, I think. So he's heckling me already, Mr. Speaker. So I just want to say hi to my family, which is it's always great that they can make out to the legislature. Honestly, we do a lot of work away from the office as well, and there's some people in our constituencies that we need to thank. Our CAs do a pile of work for us. They do a lot of casework when we have our constituents calling and they need a helping hand, and these people do a lot for us and ensure our office runs smoothly. So I want to thank Heather Hall-Shiplack. She's been my CA since we were first elected, and she does a wonderful job and an admirable job, and she's a pleasure to work with, and I'm very happy to have her as part of my team. Mr. Speaker, obviously I'm proud to stand and speak on behalf of the people of Regina Wall Shakers. It's a privilege to speak on their behalf, and every time I get up to speak in the House, I want to thank them for giving me the honor and giving me the ability to speak on their behalf and talk about the speech from the throne and talk about some of the things that they think our government's doing right and moving this province forward. And right now I want to talk about the speech from the throne and say that meeting the challenges of growth. That's what we're talking about, Mr. Speaker. The challenges of growth in Saskatchewan. A month ago we reached populations of 1.1 million, which many people thought was farcical. Thought it was just a dream. It was something that couldn't happen, Mr. Speaker. And these people, they were representatives, Mr. Speaker. One of these people, I'll jerk quote. So, Mr. Speaker, I say their plan flies in the face of reality, Mr. Speaker. Now, it may be an admirable goal, but it's not very realistic, Mr. Speaker. It also, I might say, if this is the basis for their whole approach to government, that this is a shaky basis for an economic plan, Mr. Speaker, because these plans, Mr. Speaker, if you're not right, you'll in effect take hundreds of millions, billions of dollars to put it into the plan that is doomed to fail. Because the reality is, this plan will fail, Mr. Speaker. And that was a former finance minister, Harry Van Mulligan. A former finance minister says, your plan, NDP finance minister, your plan is doomed to fail and it's going to cost you billions of dollars because this province will never be more than 1 million people. With planning like that, Mr. Speaker, it's no wonder that when you look at the province under the NDP's term, 16 years in government, it's no wonder why it took them 72 years to grow the population by 100,000 people. And fortunately, with some good fortune, we were able to reach our population in 7 years, Mr. Speaker. 100,000 people came to our province in 7 years. And I think that's indicative of how they feel the government's been running this province, Mr. Speaker. It's not the government. The government doesn't get credit for this growth, Mr. Speaker. It's the hardworking people of Saskatchewan, the business people, the entrepreneurs, the young entrepreneurs that are contributing to the growth of our province, Mr. Speaker. And I think there's a couple stories I'd like to tell about people that live in my area. The young entrepreneurs are doing well. And one is JLB Electric. He's a good friend of mine. He used to work for Town and Country. He got his journeyman, became a journeyman electrician, and he had the confidence in our province, the confidence that our province is going to continue to grow, to leave a very good job and go out and start his own company. And Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to say that JLB Electric is a growing company, Mr. Speaker. He's bought more new trucks. He's hiring more people. And Mr. Speaker, that is how you grow an economy, by giving people the optimism and the confidence that things are going to keep continuing to grow, to be able to spend some money, spend some of their hard-earned money, invest it into a company, and take the opportunities that are given to them, and take the opportunity to be your own boss, Mr. Speaker. And I think that was something that was missing for a long time in Saskatchewan. The confidence that our province is going to continue to grow. People didn't have that, Mr. Speaker, a long time ago, back in the days of the NDP, Mr. Speaker. Young people, they're fleeing for the border, fleeing for Alberta, fleeing for Ontario, just trying to get away because they didn't see that there is a future in Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker. And I'm glad that those days are gone. And I'm glad to say that that's one of the reasons that I wanted to get into politics, is because I think Saskatchewan was going to become a much greater province than it was under the NDP. We had the resources, we had the hard-working people, we had the work ethic, Mr. Speaker. We just didn't have confidence in our leaders, and that has more to do with the NDP than any of the people in Saskatchewan. Mr. Speaker, I think that we can't underestimate the role that the government can play with creating a sense of optimism in our province. It's not the government that's going to go and create jobs. It's not the government that's going to start up companies or start up businesses, but it is the government that can create the opportunity and the optimism and the confidence of people to want to come and invest here. And I think that's one of our most important jobs, to let people know you can come to Saskatchewan, you're going to have a stable tax regulatory system, you're going to have a stable regime in government, you're going to have people that are going to be willing to work hard, you're going to have an employment force, Mr. Speaker. That's one of the challenges we're facing, is that we need more people to work. One of the challenges in Saskatchewan is that we don't have enough people to work. Can you believe that, Mr. Speaker? Before, we didn't have enough jobs, and now we don't have enough people to work. And we're going to meet that challenge head on, and that is one of the challenges of the growth. An unemployment of 3% is very low. It's good that people have jobs, Mr. Speaker, but that shows that we need to open up more training spaces. We need to train more people to work, Mr. Speaker, and that's why our government in this throne speech sets out a plan of opening up 1,000 more training spaces, Mr. Speaker, which I think is very important, and making more investments in SIAS, investments in post-secondary education, because our young people have the opportunities, and we've got to ensure that they have the opportunities to become skilled laborers, to ensure that they know that they have a government that wants to make sure that they can go to SIAS and get that plumbing education, go to SIAS and become an electrician. Go and work for a company like Town & Country. And then, if they have the confidence in a growing economy, they can go and start their own business. And Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to say that I think we've set out that framework where government has given people the confidence to go and try and make it on their own, which is a far cry away from what was happening in the NDP, Mr. Speaker. There's a few things I'd like to discuss. Some of our colleagues across the way have made some comments in a few of their speeches, and one I'd like to give credit, and I don't do this often, Mr. Speaker, but I'd love to give credit to the member from Athabasca. I know that may sound a little off, but I'll give credit where credit is due. And one of the quotes from the member from Athabasca during his speech was, "This government has not had a major problem right now since they've been in government because they spent the money." Well, Mr. Speaker, I take that as a compliment, because I think I'm maybe paraphrasing from the member from Athabasca, but he's saying the government has put money in the right places. We've spent money in housing. We spent money on highways because we inherited a gigantic deficit in the highway budget, Mr. Speaker. We spent over $3 billion on highways, Mr. Speaker, and that's a huge investment to ensure that our highways are safe.
Absolutely huge.
Mr. Speaker, I know that I had some opportunities along with the member from Riversdale and the member from Cumberland. We were on the Highway Traffic Safety Committee, so we went all over Saskatchewan this summer, along with the chair from PA Carleton and the member from North Battleford and myself and the member from Saskatoon-Mewaston, and going all over our beautiful province during the summer. We had the opportunity to hear some of the concerns from people all across the province of how to make our highways safer, where we need to invest some infrastructure, where we need to invest some more policing, Mr. Speaker. And I think going out and hearing from these people, I know I had the opportunity to go up to Pelican Narrows, and never been up north that far, Mr. Speaker, and it was a great experience for us to go up and listen to some of the people's concerns up there. And I think that leads us to another conversation. Our government has been listening to the people of Saskatchewan. That was a great consultation tour we took across the province, Mr. Speaker, and I think it was fantastic to hear the concerns that some of the people had with our highways, with some of our infrastructure, wanting to make guardrails. Guardrails were an issue up in northern Saskatchewan, and the member from Cumberland knows that, and that was wonderful to hear, because sometimes maybe we don't think of the things like that, and I think it's very important that governments take the time to listen to the people, that they have had the privilege to be in government, that put them in that place. And I don't think this government's lost that. And I think it will continue to listen to the people of Saskatchewan to ensure that our priorities are meeting their priorities. And another opportunity that we were able to have is Head Start on a Home, Mr. Speaker. Affordable housing is an issue in Regina. We know that our vacancy is going up, but that's not good enough. There's more work to do. And I commend the Minister of Social Services on the Head Start for a Home program, Mr. Speaker. I think it's probably the best housing program out there for affordable housing in the country. It's a wonderful program. I've been able to attend a few of the ceremonies where people are coming to get their key ceremonies, Mr. Speaker, and to know that these people without this program would not have a place to call home, not have a place to take their children, a safe place, Mr. Speaker. I think that's one of the things government has to do. They're judged by how the most vulnerable in our society are treated, Mr. Speaker. And I think if I'd go out on an election campaign and say I'm okay with being judged on that. Head Start on a Home is giving people the opportunity to have 4 walls, to have a safe place to call home, and to build a family. And I think building a family, having a secure place is very important, especially for young families with kids. And Mr. Speaker, another program that we've invested time, resources, and money in is SED, the Saskatchewan Insured Income for Disabilities, Mr. Speaker. And SED wasn't around before 2007, Mr. Speaker. And it's a program where I know we celebrated 10,000 people were enrolled in the SED program, and that's ensuring people have income for regular things that we probably all take a little bit for granted, Mr. Speaker. And when you talk to people that are enrolled in the SED program now, I've had a couple come to my office, and it's just heartwarming, Mr. Speaker, to hear the stories they tell about being able to buy a bed for the first time, or being able to go out for a nice meal at a restaurant sometimes. Things that we do take for granted, Mr. Speaker. And I think that program, the SED program, the Head Start on the Home program, speaks to the monumental work our social service minister is doing, who I think is probably the best, will go down as the best social service minister in our province's history. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, there's a few more things, and our member from Regina, Rosemont, I know sometimes he gets off on tangents, and sometimes his maybe mouth moving quicker than his brain. And I think that a couple of these situations would be talking about Pioneer Village, Mr. Speaker, and he said the degradation and continued degradation of the facility without maintenance, support for maintenance, and rehabilitation, or what I hear from many is the need for a rebuild, Mr. Speaker. We just don't hear anything about that. And that was said by the member from Regina, Rosemont, talking about Pioneer Village. And it's a seniors complex on Dudney here in Regina. And I wanted to see if that was true, because if it's true, that's a very alarming statement. And sometimes the other side can be a bit of an alarmist, and they put some statements before fact-checking. Mr. Speaker, since 2008-2009, Pioneer Village has received $14,595,550 for maintenance and repairs, plus upcoming repairs worth an estimated $584,000. So, Mr. Speaker, that's $15 million since 08-09. I would say that's not a small percentage change, Mr. Speaker, and I think for alarmist issues like the member from Rosemont say, you know, the roof's falling in, there's no maintenance, there's no repairs, I think it's just another scare tactic of the NDP, which is pretty much high on their Rolodex of tricks to try and play on the people of Saskatchewan, and saying the sky is falling, like Henny Penny, I believe the member from Coronation Park likes to use that saying a fair bit, or the Doomsday Nine, or whatever he calls them over there. Mr. Speaker, there's some more conversations I'd like to have about some of the statements made by the members from opposite, the members from across the aisle, and that's our record on health care, Mr. Speaker. And I think I would take our record on healthcare over the 72 or whatever years they were in power, Mr. Speaker. I think our record in healthcare speaks for itself. You know, the NDP, sometimes they talk about what they would do, and they don't really remember that they do have a record. They have a record of 16 years of failure, Mr. Speaker. Their NDP, their record was they had the worst doctor and nurse retention rate in the country. Between 08 and 06, the NDP's last 5 full years in office, the province lost. And Mr. Speaker, this is what they lost: 1,160 total healthcare workers, 455 RNs and RPNs, 173 physicians, 155 pharmacists, and 95 physiotherapists. Mr. Speaker, and they get on their soapbox, and the leader from Manistee Place gets on a soapbox and cries about, obviously there's more work to be done for us, Mr. Speaker, but he talks about what they would do, Well, I'm fond of a saying that our caucus chair has, Mr. Speaker, that the best indication of future behavior is past behavior, and this is their past behavior, which they seem to have amnesia, not remember that they do have a record over there, Mr. Speaker, and when they're talking about what they would do, well, this is what they did do when they had the opportunity and the privilege to be in government, which we don't take lightly, Mr. Speaker. We know it's an honor to be in government. We know it's a privilege that we don't take lightly. We want the people of Saskatchewan to continue to have faith in us. So that's why we really continue to do what we say we're going to do, Mr. Speaker. So a little bit on our record on healthcare people in the last, what we've been doing in the last 6 years. Mr. Speaker, 20% more nurses cost us 20% more nurses call Saskatchewan home than they did 6 years ago. Mr. Speaker, we have 18% more RNs, 37 more LPNs, 58 more nurse practitioners, and 18 more nurses per capita than the Canadian average. Mr. Speaker, I know that those are just numbers, but Mr. Speaker, they're numbers that show a government that is working hard to ensure that Saskatchewan residents have the health care that they so richly deserve. We're proud of our health care record, Mr. Speaker. There is more work to be done, but we're proud of the hard-working healthcare workers within Saskatchewan that are working hard to deliver the quality of care, the best quality of care that they can. And they're doing a fantastic job, Mr. Speaker. Healthcare workers are some of the hardest workers in our province, Mr. Speaker. And we think that they're doing a fantastic job, and we're proud of what they're doing. Mr. Speaker, there's a few more issues I'd like to bring up here, and one is with physicians. Mr. Speaker, and it's I know I enjoy quoting the member from Regina Rosemont because I think he's a great young man. He's just a little off base on a few things. Mr. Speaker, I think as well of the challenges that so many are facing as it relates to access to a family doctor, to a general practitioner, to a GP. So many constituents cannot get access to a family doctor. And this is a direct quote from the member from Regina Rosemont. So I wanted to go around and see how long it would take us to find some names of people that are accepting patients as a GP, Mr. Speaker. So I hopped on the internet here, and I did a search on the Regina Copel website to find a GP. Within 5 seconds, 21 physicians popped up that are taking new patients.
What? Here.
So, Mr. Speaker, if he has constituents that are having a hard time finding a general practitioner, check the website. Mr. Speaker, there's 21 in Regina Copel Valley right now that are accepting new patients. So I hope I can help him out, and he can get up his constituency assistant to give these people a call and say, check the website. There's 21 physicians accepting new patients right now, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government's worked hard to create an opportunity for doctors to come to Saskatchewan. We've recruited 300 more doctors in our time as government. We created SAS Docs to work with RHAs on physician recruitment, SIPA to facilitate integration of internationally trained doctors into practice. This has brought 91 doctors to date, and I think my colleague from Saskatchewan River has brought one on her own, actually. Mr. Speaker, and added 40 medical training seats to the College of Medicine, so that's 60 to 100, doubled medical residency positions to 120, and there's a 10.5% premium on earnings for rural physicians adopting scope of practice. In rural Saskatchewan, we added a 20 doctor locum, and we've given the opportunity for new graduates of the College of Medicine to have some of their loan forgiven, up to $120,000 if they practice in rural Saskatchewan. Mr. Speaker, I know that there's a conversation going on in Saskatchewan, and our health minister did a wonderful job having the CEOs go out and look at all the long-term care homes across our province. Our seniors are the people that built this province. They're the pioneers. They did the hard work to make sure that Saskatchewan got set on a solid foundation. And Mr. Speaker, obviously we all have grandparents, parents, and we're all concerned about how our seniors are treated in their quality of life. So, Mr. Speaker, there's a few things though that fail to make sense when the member from Massey Place gets up and talks about, because once again, the NDP forget they have a record. They had the privilege to govern. They have a record, and obviously the best indication of future behavior is past behavior, Mr. Speaker. So what did the NDP when they had the privilege to govern our province? NDP failed to increase the senior income plan benefits for 16 years. 16 years, not a percentage increase to seniors for their income plan. Mr. Speaker, the NDP closed 1,200 long-term care beds. Obviously, long-term care beds are a conversation right now. NDP closed 1,200 of them. NDP eliminated 16 long-term care facilities. NDP closed 52 hospitals. And Judy Jr. had this to say about the NDP plan to phase out long-term care beds. These plans, okay, this is what Judy Jr., the former MLA from Eastview, Saskatoon Eastview, said about long-term care beds and their plans to phase them out. These plans will lead to a better quality of long-term care overall. So I haven't had I don't know a lot about long-term care, but to close long-term care homes and to shut down long-term care beds will lead to a better quality of long-term care overall. I'm not quite sure how that works out, Mr. Speaker, but I would think that closing beds probably doesn't lead to people having a better quality of long-term care. Mr. Speaker, I know that we've had the ability, the pleasure to open up or on the verge of building 13 long-term care homes throughout rural Saskatchewan to look after our seniors, build a long-term care home in Saskatoon to help look after our seniors, Mr. Speaker. And I think that obviously there's going to be some issues, Mr. Speaker, because when you close 1,200 or close 1,400 long-term care beds, you have some work to get back up to that infrastructure to ensure that there's the quality of care there for our seniors. And I think our health minister's done an admirable job of working on this, Mr. Speaker, and I think there's more work to be done, and we're going to work hard to ensure that our seniors are looked after because they are the pioneers of our province, and they set a grand foundation for us to be experiencing some wonderful growth right now. Mr. Speaker, obviously meeting the challenges of the growth is what our throne speech is all about. And we're looking at the city of Regina. I see growth all over, Mr. Speaker. There's land being cleared for a new area up in the northwest, close to Regina Walsh Acres. There's new homes being built in Regina Walsh Acres, infill in new areas. And I think that these growths do come with some challenges, and one is housing. Another is infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. And I was able to attend the Regina West Bypass, which our Minister of Highways got done ahead of schedule, I might add, Mr. Speaker. And the Regina West Bypass is another connecting peg in the global transportation hub, Mr. Speaker, which is a wonderful opportunity. It's creating jobs, it's creating economic spin-off, Mr. Speaker. The GTH just west of Regina, close to the constituency of Walsh Acres, is a cog in the wheel of our economy. I think is going to show some great benefits going down the line, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say the West Bypass is rerouting truck traffic, so there's not much truck traffic going on Dewdney going through the city, which makes our city streets safer, Mr. Speaker. I think that Dewdney served as a alternative route for a bit till the bypass is open, and that bypass is creating a lot more throughway traffic and easing the truck congestion going through the city of Regina right now. Mr. Speaker, I did have the opportunity to attend a lot of events and a lot of openings over the summer, and I was able to talk to a lot of constituents, and the constituents are saying, and go out and door knocking, that's one of the favorite parts of our job, Mr. Speaker, is going and door knocking in our constituency and talking to constituents and seeing how they feel we're doing, because we need that feedback. We need our constituents to let us know if they think we're on the right path, Mr. Speaker. And I think that the constituents of Regina Walsh Acres, I've talked to many of them, and they feel our government is on the right path. And they're feeling that our government is maintaining the priorities that they have. Their priorities are continuing to grow, continuing to welcome more people to our province, Mr. Speaker. Immigrants, people, expats, people that are coming back from Alberta. I have when I was graduating high school, Mr. Speaker, a lot of my friends went to Alberta, and we decided to stay because I think Saskatchewan can be a better province than it had been under the NDP. They're coming back now, Mr. Speaker. I got a friend coming back working with Halliburton, who moved their shop from Medicine Hat to Regina, Mr. Speaker, which is a fantastic sign. And I have friends that moved home and they're in Swift Current right now, and I am happy that they made it back. And our growing province, Mr. Speaker, are 1.1 million people, and then we have a great growth plan, and it's going to look at having our province be 1.2 million people by 2020. So that is why I wholeheartedly support this speech from the throne, and I will not be voting for the amendment put forward by the member from Rosemont. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.